And welcome back to part 2 of the ViperCast, episode 113. Hey, we are breaking this up because if you're like me, your attention span is very small and you can't handle listening to me for more than 20 minutes at a time anyway. Hey, too bad. That's why we're breaking it up and we're bringing it to you here. And we're going to talk wide receivers for 2022 here. We are getting into our watch list right now. We're going to talk about players to trade away, players to trade for, bounce back players under the radar, guys, and where some of the best free agents in this class are going to be heading. But again, before we do, head over to fantasypoints.com. I'm telling you right now, that media group, they're kicking it there. You've got the True North Pod. You've got the Smoke Show. You've got the DHH Happy Hour going on, Campus to Canton. So many great podcasts out there right now, and so many more coming very soon. So without further ado, Major, let's get right into this. Let's talk wide receivers. I know this is not your expertise. You are a running back guru.
Still
But
my
hey,
expertise, though.
Debo Samuel, he's bridging the gap between wide receiver and running back.
There
Can
it is.
Major Caldwell bridge that gap between fantasy analyst at the running back position and fantasy analyst expert at the wide receiver position? What say you?
I say yes, and I say the player that I'm trading away in 2022 is Kenny Galladay. If anyone would take him, I'm serving him up on a plate. Give me a second round pick. Give me a young nobody that I just don't want him on any of my teams ever. He can't stay healthy, and when he is healthy, is like he's not even there. So he still has one of those names that can get fantasy players a little excited. So once you hit up a GM, say, "Hey man, I got this guy named Galladay. What can I get for him?" Do it. Just get him off your team. Do it. Get him out of there. It's a waste of your time and energy. I'm happy I don't have him on any of my teams, but I have friends who do, and they're pretty upset with the performance throughout his whole career, I guess, except for that one
Well,
season.
let's talk about Kenny Galladay because he's an interesting one. Big payday here last offseason. High hopes coming to the New York Giants. Hey, this New York Giants team, it looked like it could have the potential to be explosive. They drafted well, Kadarius Toney. They
Mhm.
have Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Saquon Barkley was there. Daniel Jones was looking like he could be a serviceable quarterback before the season had begun. Things were looking good for Kenny Galladay, and then they just went right off the track. What can you you said a second round pick you would take. I think if someone offered you a second round pick, you hit that smash accept right now because I don't see anyone offering you a second round pick. So what is the worst? What's the lowest draft compensation that you would accept to get Kenny Galladay off of your roster? And is he at that point where it's like you're not going to get what you want for him? You get rid of him for a fourth, but do you really
Right.
want to take a fourth? Probably not. So is he one of those guys that's right now, if someone offers you a third, you're going to reluctantly take it, and or you kind of like, man, maybe he's really a hold on my roster because I want an early third, and I'm not going to get an early third if my league mates are wise to the whole situation. What's the
I'll,
lowest compensation you would take?
I'll take I think a third would be the lowest, but I mean, I'm always trying to sell, so I'm going to try to sell them to you. I'm going to put some extra hot sauce on them, try to get them to you. So I'm gonna ask for 2/3. I'm gonna ask for like my 2022, 2023, get a couple thirds out the deal. And then I'm gonna try to, come in with that second. Like, man, let me get a second out of that. But I don't think anyone's going to do that. But again, in the off season, you never know how we all know after in the off season, the fantasy world players become superheroes who are duds, and people fall for these tricks over and over again. And I think Galladay has one of those names, and he has like the opportunity being the wide receiver one out in New York. He has an opportunity to make some plays. So I'm just going to get him off of my team for anything, and I think 2/3 will do it for me.
2/3. Like I see Kenny Galladay as being that perfect throw-in player to a deal. If you are
That's
looking to upgrade that wide receiver position, maybe you're looking to get a wide receiver too. I'm thinking Kenny Galladay may have that wide receiver 3 type value still attached to him. Maybe you pair him with another wide receiver 3 and you make that move for what you feel is a wide receiver 2. I think that's where his best trade value comes into place, because quite frankly, I'm not in love with this draft class either outside the first couple rounds. So even a third is not getting me too excited, unless maybe I could pair that third later on with something else. But you know what? Kenny Galladay is definitely a guy I agree with you. Get him off that roster. For me, I got 2 here for you. I'm going to give you both sides of the spectrum here. One, Monroe St Brown. I like St. Brown. I think he's a great dynasty asset, but I think his value is higher now than it's going to be the rest of his career. I really do. Maybe he goes off and does bigger and better things, but I'm looking at a sell now, sell high, sell when I think his value is at its highest, because that's how you get better at dynasty, by accumulating multiple assets to build your team around. And maybe a Monroe St. Brown turns into a true number 1, a top 5 wide receiver in the future. I don't see that for him. I think what he did this year is going to be as good as it gets for him. I think the Detroit Lions find themselves a quarterback. They're going to have DeAndre Swift back a little bit more. They're going to go out there and get themselves another wide receiver that's going to take a little bit of pressure away. I don't think we see as many targets from St. Brown. Hawkinson gets a little bit more involved next year. So I think there's going to be a little bit of regression there. Capitalize right now for me on St. Brown's name, because he's hot name. Everyone loves talking about him right now. The other one for me is Major. You know as well as I do, we want to get out, especially on older players, while there's still some value attached to them. And for me, and this one hurts me because I am hooked on Thielen, and I'm also hooked on trading him away because, listen, he's not getting any younger. He is going to be replaced in Minnesota sooner rather than later. And that is the true thing about when it's about aging assets, especially in fantasy football and in the National Football League, the not for long league. I mean, it's hard at the wide receiver position to continue to have success. Not everyone is a Jerry Rice catching 100 passes after he turns 40. You know what I mean?
Right.
No, there's not those players. There's very few Jerry Rices, very few Tom Brady's, guys who played in their 40s and have success. Adam Thielen, those injuries are starting to add up. Unfortunately, he was banged up last year. He still has good name recognition attached to him. So I think you can still get something of value for him. And like you said, I would probably take a second round pick for Adam Thielen right now and feel okay about it, because I think that's some good wide receivers in the draft class this year that I could use a second round pick on. Third round is a little bit too much.
I got out on Thielen this year, and I went Thielen for Boyd and like Tyler Boyd, and I think I got a 4th round pick as well. So that's kind of like where, and that was towards the beginning of this season.
And Tyler Boyd, he's an interesting one. He's another free agent here at the end of the year. He may have a big Super Bowl. I'm predicting him to have a really good game. That might bring up that value a little bit more. So maybe you're trading for Tyler Boyd. If you're doing it, I'd probably do it before the Super Bowl, because if he pops up and has a big game, that value is going to skyrocket on. You're not going to be able to acquire him. But who is someone? Oh, I love this one, Major. Who are you looking to trade for? And tell me why it's the best route runner in the National Football League.
One, we're not going to do that, but I'm going to go with Hunter Renfrow for one reason only. Josh McDaniels. You got the slot god, quarterback guru, like play calling monster. See, I just made that up right now. So this year he already had 103 receptions. I did not see that coming. I'm so sad. I got rid of Hunter Renfrow like last season, like as a throw-in player. I'm like, he's just a guy. He ended up being the guy. So pie on my face for that when I give myself one of these. And if he has 103 receptions in that offense that was just kind of like all over the place with Gruden, and then the new regime came in and kind of did some stuff. Think about when the play calls are being called for him. He's going to end up with like 130, 140 receptions. It's going to be one of those ridiculous seasons for Hunter. I'm really high on him for this next season.
Hunter Renfrow, I know we compare every small, diminutive slot receiver to Julian Edelman. I mean, it seems to be the natural fit. But Josh McDaniels literally worked with Julian Edelman. You don't think he's going to use Hunter Renfrow in a very similar type situation already? And I do believe Darren Waller's going to be there, but I think they addressed that wide receiver position in the draft, and I think they could do it as early as the first round. I really do. They lost Henry Ruggs, sad tale as any. But hey, look, Jameson Williams is there. You've got guys like Drake London, who I absolutely love. There's some wide Traylon Burks. You got some big name wide receivers that could drop to where the Raiders' range is right now. That would be a good complement to Hunter Renfrow, and without taking away from Renfrow's role. Now, for me, my man crush from back in April, wrote about him, talked about him, praised him to the nines all season long. That is Mr. Darnell Mooney. I mean, give me some more Mooney, 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 Mooney. That's where I'm at. Don't you be shaking your head at me. Listen, Allen Robinson probably isn't going to stick around. I don't think that the Bears and Robinson are going to be back together.
All right.
Mooney, we know, can still have a productive season without another option to the other side, right? We know that. I expect Cole Kmet to take that next step up. That'll relieve some of the pressure for Mooney, but we've seen what he could do. Give Justin Fields another season. I've said from the very get-go, Fields wasn't ready to start yet. He wasn't. He really wasn't. But those games will help him move into year 2 and beyond. And that connection, that rapport building with Mooney means good things moving forward. Now, as I talk about good things moving forward, every year there's players that surprise us, and there are even more players who happen to disappoint us. Now, Major, who is that player in 2022 that is most likely to be a disappointment for you?
I'm gonna say Deontay Johnson. He's the number 1 receiver out there with the Steelers. He had 107 receptions this year, over 1,000 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. So he's a legitimate receiver. But the one thing that makes me kind of scared that he may disappoint, one, you have a new quarterback situation coming in, and we have no idea what it is at this point. They don't have a predecessor already on the team. And I don't think if they go the draft route, I don't know if that's going to help Mr. Johnson's stock as well. And another thing, Johnson has a case of the drop sometimes. So with those two things, with the unknown quarterback and you dropping the ball, I'm kind of he may disappoint next year. I don't think he's going to have that 100 reception, 1,000-yard season. He might not be that far off, but I don't know if it's going to be, tie for 5th in the league in receptions.
Yeah, I'm not big on Deontay Johnson. I think there's a lot of questions at the quarterback position for me right now. Just kind of, maybe I'm sitting back, I'm watching, seeing how things play out. But right now, I am a little concerned about him. Now, I have that same concern about one of my other favorite guys here right now, Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers, he's 25 years old. He's just coming off a season which he led the team in targets, receptions, receiving yards, all that fun stuff. He's done this consistently. Josh McDaniels is gone. That I think hurts him right there. He's 25. Hey, you know what? His value right now is wide receiver 51 behind Van Jefferson, behind Tyler Boyd, and yet he's outperformed both of them. He was borderline a wide receiver 2 value. I think he finished about wide receiver 30th overall, so he's right there. And I think he's a guy that could disappoint because we don't know what the offensive coordinator type situation is going to be in New England. We know they're going to want to run the ball. They got Damian Harris there. They got Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to be there as well. So listen, don't disrespect Jacoby Myers. Don't tell me that Van Jefferson's better than him. He literally had more catches Jacoby Myers did this year than Van Jefferson has his entire career. So let's pump the brakes on that kind of talk. But for me, Jacoby Myers, he is worrying me here a little bit because Josh McDaniels, he's gone there. And the other one, I'm going to go buyer beware. It's Mike Williams, who is a free agent this offseason, and you know he is going to secure that bag. This past season, when he was on, but when he was off, he was off. And that has been the tale of Mike Williams' career so far. I guarantee you he will not end up in a better situation, a better surrounding cast than Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, because the teams that have those kind of players don't have the cap room to bring them on. He's going to end up in like Jacksonville, securing that bag. And maybe, things with Trevor Lawrence, they work out or whatnot.
That's not a bad look, actually.
Yeah, but you know what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
I mean, the situation, there's so much uncertainty. I don't see him going back to the Chargers unless he doesn't get what he's probably rightfully owed. He earned that money this year. He earned that money. Let's be honest. But I think whoever gets him, the Chargers don't have that money to match. That's unfortunate because I think a lot of good players could have good seasons with the Los Angeles Chargers in 2022. I don't see that being Mike Williams. So we talked about this regression, these players that are going to disappoint, but who are those that are going to surprise us, bounce back, as I will, in 2022?
I'm going with my
Starting with
man.
you, Major.
I'm going with my man DJ Shark. Like we forgot about him. He got hurt early in the season, really bad ankle injury. But before he got hurt, it looked like him and T-Law was getting along a little bit. They were have a connection. So, and we got the new coach in there, Peterson, from the Eagles. The Eagles had a nice little run with him. Let's see if he can recreate that. And I think DJ he was the best receiver on that team before he got hurt. And I think he will resume that role once he gets back 100% healthy. But I do like this Jaguar team. It feels to me like that Bengals team before they kind of went over the top. I get that same feeling from the Jaguars. So I'm high on DJ Shark and T-Law next year.
I mean, Doug Peterson may be able to turn that around. I think they fumbled the ball there, not bringing in Brian Leftwich. I think they offered it to him.
True.
Obviously, he said no. Doug Peterson, I mean, they literally brought him back after 30 some days. He was like the very first coach they interviewed. They interviewed 9 more coaches. They're like, yeah, you know what? All right, we're going back. So We'll see how that goes. But for me, I am going to go old school here. I'm going to bust out a little bit of rock and roll. Once bitten, twice shy, baby style. I'm going to roll with Allen Robinson one more time because I am a fool for punishment. I am a sucker for pain. I am the definition of idiocracy. I will bang my head against a wall and hopefully I can break through. And I think Allen Robinson comes back to us in 2022. I mean, it can't be any worse. He's like wide receiver 70. I don't know if that's true. I'm not even going to bother checking. I tried to scroll down and I stopped after 50. I know he's way down there, but hey, it was like a perfect storm of injuries and incompetencies and Justin Fields not getting on the right page with him right from the get-go. I think Allen Robinson is one of those players that's going to benefit from a new place, a fresh start in 2022. And for me, it really doesn't matter where he goes because I really do believe he's Justin Fields proof? No, that's not right because Justin Fields didn't help about any. I'd say quarterback proof.
Yeah.
He is that guy. We've seen who he's worked with throughout his career. And the only one that could stop him was Justin Fields in 2021. A rookie quarterback trying to learn a new system. So for me, the bounce back guy is going to be Allen Robinson. A little A-Rob. Get him right now. Hey, and his value, his trade value as an asset right now is never going to be lower. I mean, if you're going to go after a guy, he's one of those guys you need to target because, hey, this is a nice buy low, so to speak, opportunity right now. Speaking of buying low, some of the guys that are the easiest to buy low are the guys that nobody's looking at right now. The under the radar type players, the ones that we've kind of forgotten about altogether that we probably didn't even know we're still playing in the National Football League because maybe they're battling injury. Maybe they're hit on the taxi squad. Maybe they were like Allen Robinson. Who is that under the radar forgotten player for you heading into 2022?
Yeah, you spoke a minute ago about players who probably do better in a different situation. I'm going with Denzel Mims. He was the fantasy darling a couple years ago. The guy had a nice little 3-week run and with injuries and falling in trouble with the coach getting into the doghouse. He just kind of disappeared. But to his credit, or just to defend him just a little bit, it's really hard to play on a losing team. And a team that looked like they really didn't have any direction. So I'm not going to fault him too hard for kind of quitting on the Jets, but the guy is all the physical attributes that you want in a player. 6'3", 207 pounds, run a 4.3, 4.4. Great hands. Route running's a little he can use some work there, but again, the talent is there. He showed us in the past that he put together a good 3 weeks. I think it was a year ago. And he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. So keep your eye on him. He may be able to pop up on one of these teams, maybe like a Raiders or maybe like maybe the Bears or maybe even somewhere like Houston or something like that that needs then he can fit right into that wide receiver number 2 role real easily without any like trouble. So I think if he can get his head right and all the stuff, I don't really know why he fell out with the coaches, but if he can get back to the player we fell in love with during the draft, I think the talent is still there. He's still super young. So just keep an eye out for Denzel Mims.
Yeah, you know what? The reason that he fell out of favor is because he's not very good. I'll come straight out and say it. I mean, we fell in love with him coming off the Senior Bowl. He absolutely lit things up at the Senior Bowl. But I remember writing a draft profile on him, and I get a lot of heat there because I do have a little bit of sarcasm when I write my draft profiles. I said at the end of the day, in my analysis, he is still a Baylor Bear, and I don't trust any wide receivers coming out of Baylor. Can you tell me one that's kind of paid off? We've had Kendall Wright, Josh Gordon. I mean, the name Corey.
Josh Gordon was the best receiver for like half a
year.
season.
Yeah, exactly. He gave you half a season of productivity. I mean, really good productivity. But I mean, there's been some huge busts coming out of Baylor. I mean, guys that we drafted in fantasy drafts early in the draft process. So that's some kind of stuff to follow along there. But now let's get into some free agents here, some players that are moving on. And there's some interesting ones here. We've talked about Allen Robinson. We've talked about Mike Williams. Jacoby Myers is technically a free agent. Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk, Russell Gage, Emmanuel Sanders, Cedric Wilson, Brian Pringle, Odell Beckham Jr., Alan Lazard, Deshaun Jackson, Jamison Crowder, Michael Gallup, Laquan Treadwell, there's a name that we don't talk about very often, and Sammy Watkins, which we will not talk about ever. T.Y. Hilton, he's there. I'm trying to go through this list here as quickly as I can of guys who could be very productive here. I mean, Preston Williams, if you're into that kind of stuff. I mean, there's some good wide receivers.
My guy, though. Preston's one of my guys.
I know we all kind of felt him a little bit there at some point. There's some good wide receivers hitting that free agent market, but who's a free agent that you want to see a good fit for with another team in 2022? Who's that guy for you?
Hey, I don't think you gave your last thing there. Did you?
Oh, no, I didn't. My under the radar guys. Yeah, I'm just trying to move the show along here as quickly as possible. For me, it's Sterling Shepard and it's Corey Davis. Corey Davis injured with the Jets. I think a lot of us are forgetting that he's even there still. And Sterling Shepard, injuries, inconsistency. He battled that hamstring injury all season long. But when he was in, he was that target machine. Him and Kadarius Toney next year are going to be a great 1-2 combination, especially if the Giants decide they want to move on from Saquon Barkley, which has been rumored here in the offseason. And Corey Davis, I will never quit him either. He's one of my guys. Yeah. I believe him. I love the situation there. I think him, Elijah Moore, maybe the Jets bring in another wide receiver there to kind of make a good little trio. I think there's some good things. Corey Davis, when he was there with Zach Wilson, they were hooking up when he was healthy. So he's a guy I'm watching. Now, let's talk free agents. Let's talk new faces, new places. What do you got for me?
I'm going Juju Smith-Schuster. I would like to see him come back home, come to LA, and end up on the Chargers. Like you spoke a little bit earlier about Mike Williams kind of having an okay situation with the Chargers, but kind of never really got it right. So I think with Juju coming home and being that wide receiver too, I think that's the best role for him. He had his best performances when he was behind Antonio Brown. So I think he could do the same in LA. Or even maybe the Raiders, maybe. I don't know, but I like him in LA. So I'm going Juju to the Chargers. Who you got?
You know, I don't hate that because last year he was flirting with going to the Chiefs. Can you imagine him on the Chiefs?
Wow.
Last second, he decided, you know what? I'm going to stick with Pittsburgh. But he must have known as Ben's last year. Ben loved him. Ben absolutely loved Juju Smith-Schuster. I think they were making like TikTok videos. Yeah, I think they were making TikTok videos in the locker room. And that's what kind of set Juju on his way there last year. And for me, we're going to hear about the Raiders when it comes to wide receivers all season long. It's going to be that connection. Easy to connect the dots. Easy to connect Juju there. For me, two things here. One, my dream scenario is reuniting Devontae Adams with Derek Carr. And the only way that works out is if Aaron Rodgers ends up anywhere but Green Bay. Green Bay would have to trade him, okay? So anyone who's talking about, oh, Aaron Rodgers is building a house in Tennessee, Tennessee can't afford him. Even if they moved on from Ryan Tannehill, they've still got to eat like $18 million of Tannehill's contract. So essentially, they would be paying Rodgers money plus Tannehill's money, meaning they've got a quarterback worth $60 million.
Right.
Not going to happen for a team that had the best record in the AFC. Now, if Rodgers does move on, it's going to be to an AFC team. And they are going to probably try to get Davante Adams. But I'm telling you what, if Davante Adams does not get to go with Aaron Rodgers, he's going to want to get with Derek Carr. They're buddies, they're friends, they hang out in the offseason. That would be that's my dream scenario right now. Plus, it'd be hilarious when our other co-host here, Tara, shows up on the show. We'd dedicate an entire show to that. But the other one for me is I'm going to continue with the Raiders here, and I'm going to send Allen Robinson to the Raiders. Let's give them Hunter Renfrow, Allen Robinson, Darren Waller. That's a pretty solid trio of wide receivers. Yeah. And you may not have to break the bank to get Allen Robinson based on what he was able to do last year. Hey, Derek Carr, let's laugh it up. Let's chuckle. Laugh it up, funny guy. Still 5th in passing yards in 2021. I don't care if they're short, dink and dunk, whatever you want to talk about. He still pushed the ball. He had like the most passing attempts over 20 yards on the season, or second most, or something like that. He's one of the top 2 when it came to getting the ball deep. So, hey, Allen Robinson would be a great fit for the Raiders for me. And, hey, you know what? We're talking rookies. We're talking fantasy football. We got rookie drafts coming up really quickly on the horizon here right now. Who is your top rookie of this draft class, Major?
I'm going Jameson. Is it Jameson? How do you say his name? Jameson Williamson or Williams? Jameson Williams. He's the guy's the fastest player in the whole college football atmosphere. The guy runs maybe like a 4.2 40. That injury did kind of make him drop a little bit. But I do think that's going to be a blessing in disguise because it's going to push him back in the draft a little bit. He's probably going to end up on a pretty good team where he can hop right in and give you like a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type production in his first season. So look for him to be, especially how the offense, how football is now. It's a spread concept, and speed kills when the players all spread all over the place. So I'm gonna give it to Williams and see what happens. Who you got, Matt?
I love this draft class for wide receivers. I think we're going to see 7 in the first round, possibly 8 wide receivers go in the first round. We talked about Treylon Burks a little bit earlier. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Chris Olave there. You got Drake London, Jameson Williams, David Ball, George Pickens, John Mechie, all guys who could go in the first round. And we're not even talking about Johan Dotson. We're not talking about Christian Wilkins, who absolutely killed it at the Senior Bowl, who I think could slide into the first round. Guys are talking about him as an early day 2 guy. He could be that guy, 6'4", flexible, could find himself in the first round. Forget about the North Dakota helmet he is wearing. The dude can play ball. It's going to be fun watching this draft. You're going with an Alabama guy, so I applaud you on that. I'm going to return the favor, and I'm going to go Drake London, USC, all the way. This USC, guy can do everything that I want. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster was the first USC receiver that kind of got us excited in a long time. There was quite a dry spell there. Robert Woods coming out of there, another great wide receiver recently. And then it basically dried up until Michael Pittman came along. Right. And now we get the next one. Drake London. He broke out. He broke out with some of the best. He broke out with Michael Pittman at USC. He broke out with another great wide receiver at USC. He had his breakout. Monroe St Brown. He broke out with St Brown and Pittman on the roster. That was his breakout year. So I am all in on Drake London of the USC Trojans. But still, roll Tide. And you know what? Roll on with fantasypoints.com. Hey, you want that subscription? Go get it right now.
Get it.
I mean, you can pause this right now. Go over there, subscribe. Hey, we mentioned some of the good podcasts that are part of that media group. You get the P2W podcast there with Nick Script there, Major's buddy, that they do every show with on Sunday there on Fantasy Points. You've got the Triple Play Fantasy Crew. You want some great interviews from football to baseball to anything. Those are your guys to get involved in. Make sure to check out those podcasts as well while you're at it. And while you're here, hey, if you're still listening to us, we've got our Dynasty top 20 wide receivers coming. Why 20? Because we got 20 minutes to kill yet for part 3 of the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. Hey, stick around. And you know what? Best part is, I'm gonna edit this completely separate. It's gonna be a different video. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you're getting the full hour and 30 minutes, the full 90 in one shot here. But hey, if you can only stand looking at me or my mustache for 30 minutes at a time, this is the perfect thing for you right now. And hey, don't forget, if you want this mustache, I've got a Dynasty Mustache series over on the Vipers Network you're going to want to check out. But hey, I need to grab a quick drink of water. So we're going to cue up the video here. A little bit of the nice little wide receiver and Dynasty ranking coming at you here shortly.